No, I don't take sh**. I got no love for the
Infinity Pool ending explained in detail. How does Infinity Pool's body horror tale of cloning and murder tourism end? Infinity Pool is the third feature film by Brandon Cronenberg, son of the legendary body horror master David Cronenberg. Like Antiviral and Possessor, Infinity Pool sees Brandon following in his father's footsteps while creating his distinct voice. Infinity Pool stars Alexander Skarsgård as novelist James Foster staying with his wife Cleopatra Coleman at a resort in the seaside country of La Tolka. James meets Gabi Goth and her husband Albin Jalil Vispert, who asks James and to join them on a trip to the countryside. On the trip back, a drunk James runs over and kills a local man. The following day he's arrested. The punishment for the crime is to be killed by the victim's son. However, La Tolka allows tourists to pay to have surrogate doubles of themselves created to be executed in their place. Which version of James is executed in Infinity Pool? At one point, the possibility is brought up that the original James was executed, and his clone lived. Infinity Pool purposely keeps it ambiguous whether this is actually what happens. However, it is revealed that multiple clones were created of James, at least one without his consent. This and a noticeable change in James' personality after the execution makes it all the likelier that it was the original James who was executed. Why does Em leave? Why doesn't James go with her? While she was not implicated in James' hit and run, his wife Em was forced to watch the execution. As his victim's 13-year-old son stabbed him, James began begging Em for help. At the same time, she notices a complete lack of empathy in James sitting next to her. After the execution, Em wants to leave La Tolka as quickly as possible, but James pretends to lose his passport, which he hid under the sink. Em initially stays at the resort with James but becomes increasingly disturbed by his behavior. Finally, Em leaves James and heads back to America, never again to be seen for the remainder of the film. Who are Gabi Albin's friends in Infinity Pool? In the aftermath of the execution, Gabi explains to James that she and Albin also witnessed clones of themselves executed on a previous visit to La Tolka. Gabi then introduces James to her and Albin's friends, who have all been previously convicted of crimes in La Tolka. Knowing there are no permanent consequences for their actions, the group spends their vacations committing horrible crimes for fun. James is taken along to participate in a brutal home invasion, during which Albin ends up being shot in the leg, disturbing Em when James takes him back to their room. The next day, James is seen applauding with the group as he witnesses a group execution of a new batch of clones. Jake later participates in an orgy with the group after taking a local hallucinatory drug with Gabi. However, James' relationship with the group sours when it is revealed that a prospective victim appearing to be Detective Thresh is a clone of James made without his knowledge. What are Gabi's true intentions in Infinity Pool? Despite initially appearing as a fan of James' writing, Gabi targeted and abused James for fun, hoping to turn him into a murder tourist while also demeaning him. First, Gabi and her friends prevent James' attempt to escape La Tolka following his discovery of a clone of himself created without consent. Gabi then proceeds to abuse James from her car, calling him and his career as a novelist pathetic. Throughout the film, it is evident that Gabi has been grooming James to be a sadomasochistic slave of her, beginning early in the movie with her sneaking up behind James and masturbating him. In addition, the hallucinatory drug Gabi had James take likely played another role in her influence on him. As such, Gabi's verbal abuse continues this breaking down of James, leading toward the final climactic moment of Infinity Pool. What was the goal of James's final test? The climax of Gabi's sadomasochistic game with James is forcing him to kill a clone of himself bred to be a rabid dog. Despite refusing to take the knife Gabi gives him, James is forced to fight back when his dog clone attacks, and James ends up punching the clone's head into a bloody pulp. Finally, Gabi rewards a now fully broken James by allowing him to suck on her breast, which she covers with blood. This marks the point where James has entirely lost all of his humanity and is now wholly Gabi's slave. The expectation is that James is fully integrated into Gabi's group of murder tourists. However, the final moments of Infinity Pool hints that this is not the case. Why does James remain in La Tolca? As La Tolca's tourism season ends, everyone prepares to return to America. Gabi and others turn off the murderous characters they were on vacation and now converse like ordinary people. However, James is affected by the events, and the film's final shot sees him opting to stay on La Tolca and sit in an empty resort in the middle of a monsoon. There are many possible interpretations of this ending. One is that James was irreparably traumatized by the film's events and could no longer return to life. Another possibility is that the original James died in the execution, and this James is just an emotionless clone who has had no real humanity to begin with. The real meaning of Infinity Pool's ending explained. Infinity Pool can be interpreted as a more cerebral version of The Purge. At its core, the film examines what happens to someone's humanity if they can commit horrible crimes with no real consequences. Gabi has fully embraced this lifestyle, and her goal throughout the film is to break James down to brainwash him. Using psychoanalytic theory, Gabi represents the instinctual desires of the id, and James is the organized and realistic ego. James' wife, M, is the moralizing superego, and her departure makes James thoroughly corrupted by Gabi. However, the dehumanizing of James doesn't stick, and Infinity Pool ends with a man being a literal shell of his former self, whether the original or a clone. James' wife, M, is the moralizing superego, and her departure makes James thoroughly corrupted by Gabi. However, the dehumanizing of James doesn't stick, and Infinity Pool ends with a man being a literal shell of his former self, whether the original or a clone.
Don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit, I got no love